hope she's alive.
What is going on in Bardstown?
She vanished from Earth.
No sign of Crystal.
Last seen alive by her boyfriend.
She could be anywhere. I started panicking.
Your first thought was foul play. She'd been abducted.
Something was seriously wrong.
The community was outraged and scared.
Somebody knows something.
Somebody's gonna crack.
For generations, Bardstown, Kentucky has been known for its bourbon. Rural Nelson County is home to distilleries, rolling hills, and sprawling farms.
When you think of Bardstown, you also think of the Bourbon Trail.
Nelson County, Bardstown area is the bourbon capital of the world. We're about 30 minutes south of Louisville, Kentucky.
Bardstown is a very cute little town. It makes you feel like you've gone back in time just a little bit.
It's a small town where everybody waves at you.
But in 2015, this community fell under a dark cloud of mystery, finger-pointing, and suspicion.
There is a pallor that hangs over Bardstown. There is a palpable sense that something is amiss.
The days of leaving your keys in your vehicle and going back out there in the next morning and having your vehicle there, those days are over.
I think everyone felt just ill at ease and a little more unsafe in our houses.
I've been working here for over 6 years now, and one of the biggest stories that I have covered is the disappearance of Crystal Rogers.
In the summer of 2015, Crystal Rogers was a loving mom of 5 children, ranging in age from 2.5 to 16, and she was waiting tables at a local restaurant chain, a stone's throw from the Bluegrass Parkway.
Crystal was an excellent mother. She never met a stranger, Crystal didn't. She worked at our local Crackle Barrel here in town, and everyone loved her in there.
Crystal was older than me. My go-to person, my best friend, we did everything together.
She was a very kind-hearted person. Crystal would do anything for anybody. She was very good about that.
She was quiet in a way, personality-wise, but she also would have stood up for herself. She didn't let anybody really run over her.
She was in a relationship, too, with Brooks Hauk, a Nelson County native, the father of her youngest son. Just a year prior, he'd had ambitions to become sheriff.
He was a former candidate for Nelson County Sheriff, and he had a lot of management experience and was, touting himself as somebody with a lot of experience dealing with large sums of money and a qualified candidate for office.
Brooks Hauk owns a bunch of properties. He rents them out. He's a landlord, and he is a contractor.
My granddaughter texted me and was looking for her mother, and she said she wasn't answering the phone. So I texted Crystal, but I didn't get a response. I didn't pay a lot of attention to that at the time because I just thought maybe she was busy or her phone was dead.
I called her and her phone was still turned off. And I was like, that's odd for her. She normally always answers my phone calls. Her phone's never normally off.
The next day I had called my mom and Crystal's cousin, and no one had talked to her. I started panicking.
I went by their house where her and Brooks were living at the time, and her car wasn't in the driveway.
I told my husband I was very concerned, and, I was getting upset. And I told him, I said, she never does not return my phone call. She would have called us by now. He said, well, go look for her, and you go file a report at the sheriff's department.
On that Sunday, July 5th afternoon, I was working in my home office, listening to the police scanner, and I overheard a dispatcher send a deputy to the sheriff's office to do a missing persons report.
We all kind of sat in the parking lot and was like, what's our next step? And then we got the phone call that somebody had seen her car on the BG.
Her vehicle was located on the Bluegrass Parkway. It was sitting just off the shoulder of the interstate.
The strange thing about finding her car on the side of the Bluegrass Parkway is that her cell phone, purse, and keys, they were all still in the car.
It had a flat tire and it was pulled off to the side of the road. I know my daughter would not have left that vehicle.
So when the local investigators located the car on the interstate, there didn't appear to be anything out of the ordinary other than all of her personal effects were in the car at the time it was found on the interstate. It would be logical that if a person is going to leave to start a new life that they're going to take their personal belongings.
Normally, a missing person report, you put the person into the database. We intend to locate those individuals via cell phone, credit card use. On Crystal's case, we didn't have any of that.
Does it mean that she walked away from the car to go and hitchhike?
She vanished from Earth. That's almost impossible for a person to continue to live, whether in another country or here in the U.S., under no movement whatsoever. That's the troubling part.
You get on this road and they give us permission, we can take your little. I was going down the Bluegrass Parkway and I seen one of the bloodhounds that someone had brought in, and I seen all the searchers, and he said, I've got to help this family. Everybody wanted to help.
The whole community is really rallying behind this family. People that didn't even know Crystal Rogers were trying to help find her and search for her. I mean, these efforts were massive for such a small community.
Crystal was last seen alive on Friday, July 3rd, by her boyfriend, Brooks Houck. He's the last person to have seen her.
They went to the family farm. They fed some animals. They got home around midnight. Brooks Houck said he went to bed that night.
And Crystal stayed up and played on her phone. He got up the next morning, that Saturday morning, July 4th. Crystal was no longer at home.
He said he was not concerned about it because she had done this before, so he actually never reported her missing to police.
Sherry Ballard actually ran into Brooks, who was with the son he shared with Crystal, on her way to the sheriff's office to file the missing persons report.
I knew that instant, if she did not have that baby with her, there was definitely something wrong. She's got little kids, you know, and they miss their mama.
In 2015, the July 4th weekend was full of panic and worry for Sherry and Tommy Ballard. Their daughter, Crystal Rogers, a mother of 5, had vanished. She was last seen by her boyfriend, Brooks Houck, who says she was playing games on her phone when he went to bed the night of July 3rd. Her car, a maroon 2007 Chevrolet Impala, was spotted on the outskirts of town with a flat tire, less than 48 hours after she'd been last seen.
It was found on the Bluegrass Parkway, her keys in it, her purse in it, her cell phone in it, and she was nowhere around.
I just knew at that moment, like, something was seriously wrong.
On the way to file a missing persons report, Sherry actually ran into Brooks.
I walked over to his truck, and he rolled the window down. I asked him if he had talked to Crystal, and he said no. And I told him, I said, well, did you have a fight? What happened? And He said she may have gotten a little tizzy about the kids. I remember looking in the back seat because I wanted to see if that baby was with him, and he was. He peeked his little head around the corner and smiled at me. I knew that instant, if she did not have that baby with her, there was definitely something wrong. I said, I'm going to go file a missing persons report, and he looked at me with no emotion at all, and he just said, I think that's what you should do. He never offered to go with me. He never said anything else.
I called Brooks, and he had not seen Crystal. When he told me that they had gotten into an argument and she ran off, that just threw red flags for me.
The last person that we know that Crystal was with was her boyfriend or common law husband. They have a child together. They live here in Bardstown. His name is Brooks Houck, and I want everyone to know that he has been completely cooperative with our investigation.
They said Brooks Houck was cooperating with the investigation. He was not a suspect.
That statement made me wonder, well, who's questioning if he's cooperating fully? Why would you have to make that statement? Sherry was the first to say that her daughter had been the victim of foul play.
So you thought the worst from the beginning?
Yes. I remember my husband telling me one time, he's like, well, Sherry, maybe they just took her somewhere, you know, and I said, well, what do you think? They're going to turn around and give her back to us? The day my daughter went missing, I really never felt like that was ever going to happen. My husband's search for our daughter was remarkable. From day one, he promised these kids he would bring their mother home. I never saw him rest for a minute.
We just kept going. Non-stop rain, it didn't matter.
They had volunteers from outside the state bringing search dogs and teams on horseback and ATV.
We set up on the side of that road and people would just show up and help us search.
For nearly a week after Crystal vanished, Brooks Houck, who police said was cooperating, spoke up for the first time.
Some people have accused you of not being involved enough in the search efforts. What's your response?
That is a great question. All of my effort has been done behind the scenes.
Where have you been searching at? Because you haven't reached out to her family or friends that she would normally talk to. You've been at home.
He wasn't doing anything. You would think you would have some kind of emotion towards the person missing. He had zero emotion.
We just don't know how people handle stress. Do we want to tell people, here's how you're supposed to act? It's like the Salem witch trials for defendants nowadays.
What happened the night Crystal goes missing?
Earlier that day, she showed rental property.
So Friday evening, she shows the property. She gets home after 5 o'clock. And what children, if any, did she have with her at that time?
2 children. The other 2 children had already been dropped off at their dad's house.
What did you guys do for supper that night?
We ate here at the house.
That night, you get back, and what was she doing when you went to bed?
She was playing games on her phone.
Where was the baby?
The baby was still up.
Who had the baby while she was playing games?
He was just running loose in the house.
What time did you go to bed, and was she still up playing games on her phone?
She was still up playing games on her phone. It was really close to midnight.
So you slept through the whole night and did not realize that she was gone?
That's true.
Did you report her missing?
No, ma'am.
Why?
I was not in the least little bit alarmed in any way, shape, or form. We have had a stressed relationship at times, and one of the ways that Crystal has always chose to cope or to deal with that is by going to her cousin. She spent the night there on several occasions.
We were relentless at the sheriff's department. I remember them telling me it might take a year to bring my daughter home. That is not acceptable to me. I thought they were crazy. I was like, if you think I'm going to wait a year to bring my daughter home, that's not ever going to happen.
Sherry and her husband Tommy did wait until finally there was movement.
One video was with Brooks Houck. The other two videos were of Nick Houck, Brooks Houck's brother.
I don't give a damn what your computer said. You come over? No.
He gets a call from his brother during that interrogation. You could tell it was some type of heated argument between the brothers.
In July of 2015, rumors and speculation of where Crystal Rogers, mom of 5, may have gone were flying around Bardstown, Kentucky. Family had found her car on the Bluegrass Parkway, and she was last seen by her boyfriend Brooks Houck playing games on her phone when he went to bed the night of July 3rd.
I would label Brooks Houck a suspect.
Sheriff Mattingly named Brooks Houck as the prime suspect. They believed that Crystal Rogers is dead.
Finally, somebody's listening to us. Things are coming together.
The city of Bardstown released to the media 3 different videos. One video was with Brooks Houck. The other 2 videos were of Nick Houck, Brooks Houck's brother.
Those videos were from interviews in July and before Brooks had been named a suspect.
She gets home about 5:15, you get back from the store, you all are there from, let's say, 5:30 to 7 o'clock together. You guys leave to go to the farm. You all fed the cows with the bucket. And then you walk. You had a little fire. When was that? After you took your walk or before you took your walk?
I lit it right before we took off walking. I know we fed the cows first because I want to do that as quickly while we had still plenty of daylight.
Did you burn anything Friday night when you were out there?
Yeah, yes. It's not uncommon. I don't want the stuff piling up to the moon. I always light a fire.
You've taken your walk. The fire is down, maybe not out, but it's down enough. And you're leaving. Looks like it's about 5 minutes till midnight.
All right.
You said you all talked about the kids Friday evening. Does that conversation bleed over to when you get home, or is that conversation done?
No, whenever I got home, I went to bed. I mean, it was relatively, quickly when I got in there. The conversation does not bleed over.
So you go to bed, she stays up. What's she doing?
She's just on her phone playing.
So you get up between 6 and 7, and where's at when you wake up?
He's next to me.
When you wake up, he's there, but Crystal's not.
She's not. A lot of times, her and Brooke, her sister, or Sabrina, they go out and do stuff. They stay out the better part of the night, if not the whole night.
Brooks, a lot of the times, seemed very upset, emotional about it.
What else do you want to know?
Take a minute, it's all right.
No, it's...
Then he also got very emotional when he was talking about his name getting tarnished.
I'm in here answering a bunch of bull. I can't even go out on the side of the road without looking like a murderer. This is starting to get silly. I don't need an attorney. I haven't asked for an attorney. I don't need none of that. I'm innocent. I'm willing to talk to whoever.
About 2/3 of the way through the interview, the phone rang.
Can I get this?
Sure. Can you come over?
No.
He gets a call from his brother.
I'm up here in this interview with Detective Snow.
His brother, Nick Houck, is a Bardstown police officer. He is talking to Brooks during this, and it's all being recorded.
I'm filling out this statement here and everything. You tell me that's what I need to do. The way that I look at it is I'm innocent. I ain't done nothing wrong.
You could tell it was some type of heated argument between the brothers. We can't hear exactly what is being said between them.
I'll do exactly what you're telling me to do right now. You want me to get up and leave? I don't think these people are rather vindictive just to skin me for no reason. He thinks y'all are gonna fuck is what he thinks.
I don't know who he is.
Nick, my brother.
The other 2 videos were of Nick Houck. One was with Kentucky State Police investigators.
When's the last time that you had seen Crystal?
I'm sure it was sometime I seen her just driving around out on the road, but I don't really remember where I was at.
Did she talk about anything specific, anybody specific?
I don't remember that. I can't even remember what I did 2 days ago.
I remember one of the detectives saying later on that he has a strange case of amnesia when it came to questions about Crystal Rogers.
Do you remember going out to the farm the evening of July the 8th?
I don't, but I very easily could have been out there.
Why did he leave earlier or you leave earlier? Do you remember?
I don't have any idea.
Did you leave first or did he leave first?
I don't know.
Maybe he doesn't. Or he does remember, and he just don't want to say it because he knows what police do. He's an insider.
You kind of know what to expect, so I would even expect.
Are you completely on my phone? Yes, sir.
Investigators also revealed they'd seen Brooks after his interview with police had ended on surveillance video at the family farm with Nick.
That night after you called your brother, told him to leave, or told him to be careful or take care of himself, did you all meet up anywhere?
Not that I recall. I don't think we did.
You know, you talked about the videos out there at the house on the corner of Pascal Valley. That video does show you and your brother going out there arriving at the same time, right behind each other.
Mm-hmm.
You got witnesses that said they remember passing both of you, on 49.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one right, he was in front, you were behind him.
Does the meeting seem incriminating? Of course, it seems incriminating. But again, everything would seem incriminating.
We didn't make a special trip out there together, if that's what you're getting at.
At that point, for them to meet up is consistent with the idea of, dude, I heard you tell me to stop talking, and I went ahead and listened to you after arguing with you, but we're going to have to meet up, and I'm going to need you really to talk to me in person and let me just express to you what's going on.
Cops also revealed a discovery in the trunk of Nick's police cruiser.
You're aware that when the cruiser was taken from you, that it was actually taken to the Kentucky State Police Forensic Central Laboratory.
That's what I assume.
You know what luminol is used for?
To find blood?
Okay. Or other
bodily fluids.
Uh-huh.
We all excrete bodily fluids, sweat, vomit, anything, saliva. All that is what would fluoresce. Why would your trunk look like a Smurf if they sprayed it? Why would it fluoresce?
It looked like Chernobyl. A couple spots in your trunk and that blanket, just lit up like Chernobyl. You say it's a coincidence. You'll be leaving together. The next day, your cruiser is found with this, the stuff in the trunk, and it's taken to the lab. It's got bodily fluid in it.
I wish I knew what to tell you guys. You guys just got to test that and let me know when you find out. There's no reason anything should be in the trunk of that car.
Did your brother ever call you and say that he'd done something to Crystal?
No, he did not.
His car lit up like a Christmas tree or lit up like Chernobyl. Okay, fine. It's a police car. He's probably had occasion to have blood or bloody things in his trunk. Unless they got some DNA analysis that says we found one strand of DNA or something that suggests this is your sister-in-law's blood. That would be a problem, but they don't have that.
Whose fluids those were hasn't been revealed.
We think that your brother is a good guy, and we think that he's probably a pretty good father. He's probably a pretty good boyfriend to Crystal. But we all have times where something just happens. He probably found out that some other police officer or some other person in the town was Crystal. And when and your brother found out about it and confronted Crystal about it, and when he did, he probably tried to maybe do something to her as far as making her understand that wasn't going to fly with him.
That didn't happen.
And then after that point, maybe it went just a little bit too far. And when he couldn't turn back time, who's he going to reach out to? But the one person that he trusts and knows that would help him out, and that would be you.
I can see you looking at things that way, but there's no way that happened.
10 minutes later, Nick Houck agreed to take a polygraph.
I don't mind to take the polygraph. I really don't.
So you take a polygraph and say the exact same thing if they ask you on the polygraph. If they said, Nick, did you have any involvement with the disappearance?
I'd say no, because I didn't.
Nick did take the polygraph, and the results raised eyebrows.
Nick, I've had a chance to review your charts on both tests. That first test, you did not pass the test. So it's pretty clear to me that you haven't told me the complete truth today.
The fact that he took a polygraph was significant to me. I don't know why he would have taken one.
I've been 100% truthful.
Why are you yelling at me?
Well, because you're telling me I'm lying and I know I'm not. I know the truth. I don't give a damn what your computer said. Okay?
I think you do.
That's how I read. No, I didn't know Crystal.
Then why are you getting so angry?
Because you're calling me a liar.
It's the examiner's interpretation of it and not the polygraph itself. There's no light that goes off and says lying. It's just them saying, it looks like you're lying to me.
What's the results on your test?
And that's when Brooks' brother, Nick, gets relieved of his duties from the Bardstown Police Department.
Mr. Houck's termination is not based on anything that is directly related to that disappearance. We assume for our purposes that Officer Houck and anybody else in his family, that they were not guilty, if you will, or involved in any way, shape, or form.
Were you surprised he called his brother and interfered with the investigation?
Yes. Someone could have called him. He could call his brother. But in that case, he doesn't call his brother while he's a police officer. That's unacceptable.
For 13 months, the search for Crystal continued, with no arrests or charges filed.
My husband told me I was doing dishes in the kitchen, and he told me, he said, Sherry, don't stand in front of that window with the shade open. When you go home at night and she's not there, and you just think, where is she?
In November of 2016, Tommy and Sherry Ballard had gone nearly 16 months without any trace of their firstborn daughter, Crystal. Crystal's boyfriend, Brooks Houck, had been named a suspect by the Nelson County Sheriff's Office.
Tommy Ballard was the champion of trying to find his daughter. He really led the way.
I never saw him rest for a minute. Even at night, if he was watching TV, he was watching those crime shows. He said, Sherry, I might learn something. You know, it could be important.
Tommy had so much determination and promised his daughter, I will bring you home. I will find you. I will not give up.
The family had been given a warning to be careful. Police thought they were being watched.
Law enforcement told us this is a very dangerous situation. You know, we needed to be careful. My husband told me I was doing dishes in the kitchen, and he told me, he said, Sherry, don't stand in front of that window with the shade open. He carried a weapon with him. I told him, I said, that's not always going to help you. You know, if someone's behind you, you may not even know it or realize it. The night before, he had made a phone call to my other little grandson, and he was going to take him hunting. When the next morning came, Tommy and my grandson got up and they got ready. I just said out loud, God, please take care of them in the woods today. About 30 minutes later, I got a phone call from my grandson, and I couldn't understand him. You know, I just heard that Papa's been shot. I was panicking, and I was trying to understand everything he was telling me. I went immediately there. As I'm pulling in the ambulance, and a police officer was in front of me. And they didn't go down the hill to where my husband was. I remember thinking, why are they sitting there? Why aren't they coming down the hill? I could see my husband laying there. I could see a police officer sitting down beside him. And I jumped out of my car and I ran over there to him. My son was there. Both of my grandsons were there. And I just shook him and told him to get up, and it didn't dawn on me that I didn't get there in time. That I didn't.
I was actually at work. One of my nurse managers came and got me. I was like, maybe they found her. She's like, just come with me and, he can tell you everything. It has nothing to do with Crystal. When I rounded the corner, it was actually my fiance and best friend standing there. And I knew at that moment something was wrong. He told me that Dad had been shot.
Tommy had indicated he felt like he was being followed for about 2 weeks prior to that.
Kentucky State Police, they were the lead investigating agency of his death, and at the time, they were thinking it was a hunting accident.
Fish and Wildlife showed up. Once they got there, they pretty much determined that that was not the case.
He's out in an open field. He's not even in his deer stand yet. That was no accident.
Where the scene was right adjacent to the parkway. Parkway probably did play some part of it.
KSP had an area roped off on the parkway side of their fence, searching the ground closely for any possible clues.
It was a chest wound. As to trajectory or where the shot came from, I just can't talk about that.
The shocking death of Tommy Ballard was yet another crushing blow to a family far too familiar with tragedy.
Tommy Ballard, growing up, he had a sister named Sherry. She was Sherry Ballard as well.
Sherry Ballard Barnes disappeared in 1979. Her body was found in 1982. Her husband, Eddie Barnes, was convicted of her murder in 1984. But in this case, the family suspected instantly a link between Tommy's death and Crystal.
I made a connection immediately.
I knew right then who done it and why it was done. I think they targeted Dad because they knew that he was going to find out the truth. I think he was onto something and he was really close.
We are investigating it as a murder. But as for specifics of what we have in evidence, I just really can't go into that.
They've also not named anyone a suspect in Tommy's murder.
We were all so devastated and so lost that, we did do the search, but it was nothing like when my husband was there.
But in August of 2020, there was a sliver of hope.
My son made a phone call to me and he said, "Mom, don't get upset."
For 5 years, Crystal Rogers' family had been seeking answers. Her boyfriend had been named a suspect, but there was no arrest. And in November of 2016, the murder of Crystal's father, Tommy, added another layer of family grief. In the summer of 2020, there was a new discovery.
My son made a phone call to me and he said, "Mom, don't get upset. There's been remains found in Bardstown."
Human remains were found in the Nelson County area, and so many people in the community thought, oh my goodness, this could be the ending of this case. We could finally find Crystal.
Is it her? Will we finally have answers? Do I even want answers?
I never really thought they were my daughters because of the location.
I really had a feeling it was her.
The FBI took over around the same time human remains were found in Nelson County.
That day in August was huge. We had not seen anything to this magnitude in the Crystal Rogers case in quite some time.
Several warrants had been served before on multiple properties in Nelson County, but this time it was the FBI.
You had over 150 federal agents show up to my front parking lot of the sheriff's office. I've never seen that.
You're describing 150 FBI agents in a rural area executing multiple search warrants.
They were basically turning Bardstown upside down with these search warrants and these interviews.
I'm not in a position to comment on the exact locations of where those search warrants were executed or who lived at those residences.
The FBI and the IRS, they went door to door in many neighborhoods canvassing and just talking to neighbors, asking them questions and what they saw 5 years ago.
One of the places the FBI had a warrant for was the home Crystal had shared with her boyfriend, Brooks Houck.
That was really the first time we had seen them on the doorstep of Brooks Houck's home. So everyone was wondering, what is the IRS doing here?
Department of Justice and the FBI has a significant body of evidence that has been derived from multiple search warrants.
The FBI, they are the lead investigating agency. They are working with the IRS, and the only thing that they can really say about that part of the investigation is that they are looking into criminal tax issues. We saw Brooks Houck out on his front lawn that day, seemingly not having a care in the world, but also they were searching Nick Houck's home as well, and also the Houck family farm, which that is an enormous undertaking in itself. That is a 200 to 300 acre family farm. I mean, this is a big deal.
We've been involved in the case before it became public knowledge. We want to give the public confidence that the FBI is involved in this case, that the FBI is looking very closely at this, and it's a priority investigation for us.
It's also not the only unsolved murder investigation in Bardstown.
We hit a rough patch, starting with Jason, then the Netherlands, and then Crystal, and then Tommy.
Officer down, Bluefield Road.
In 2013, nearly 9 miles from where Tommy Ballard was killed, police officer Jason Ellis was gunned down in the middle of the night on a Bluegrass Parkway exit ramp after his shift ended. Less than a year later, Kathy Netherland and her daughter Samantha were violently murdered in their Bardstown home.
I'm not going to say that these are connected. I believe that because the community is a small community, that if we solve one of these cases, it may encourage other people to come forward.
This is not the Bermuda Triangle. This is not a place to come and commit crimes, especially murders.
We do hear the rumors, and we do hear the speculation that the public feels like there are some connections in some of the cases.
I'm not going to speculate. Somebody knows something.
It took quite some time for the FBI to come forward and say that those remains were in fact not Crystal.
They still don't know who it is at the moment, but they know it's not her.
You get a phone call saying it's not your daughter, and you're relieved. At the same time, you feel guilty because you wanted it to be her, because you know this is your only chance of bringing your daughter home.
Despite all those warrants and searches, there were no arrests.
We're nearing the end of the investigation.
This behind me is the site the FBI has been digging for much of the day today.
When Crystal Rogers disappeared in 2015, no one thought years would pass with no sign of her.
The minute I think that law enforcement is not fighting for my husband and my daughter, you can trust me, I will be out there in full force, getting answers for my family.
This behind me is the site the FBI has been digging for much of the day today and yesterday. As you can see, it is much of an entire driveway.
In the blistering heat of a Kentucky summer, the FBI swarmed the quiet subdivision of Woodlawn Springs, searching property once owned by Brooks Houck. For a week, they dug. until they found something.
During the course of our search thus far, multiple items of interest have been uncovered. Initial analysis shows they are potentially relevant to the investigation into the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. The items have been sent to the FBI laboratory in Quantico, Virginia for further forensic analysis.
What that analysis shows remains unclear, and still, no arrests.
I know they're waiting for the same moment that I am. Everything's going through my mind, like, what am I going to do if it is her? What am I going to do if it isn't her? I don't know how I survived this. God has given me the strength.
She is taking care of Crystal's children and raising them not only as a grandma, but as a mother now.
I have to be strong for them. I have to be their voice. I can't let them down. My daughter and husband are never going away. As long as I'm still walking on this earth, my daughter and husband will have a voice.